All right, so we have something really interesting here that we're going to be looking at. Low key, it's a bit of an investigative sort of effort, but I was actually tipped off to something really interesting by a live viewer, where he was like, "Look, Gavin McInnes actually accidentally, unwittingly exposed Stephen Clam Chowder for actually backing out of a debate with Sam Seder." And this is going to play into a bunch of different stuff, a litany of different stuff. A litany of different stuff is the phrase that I'm going to use because it seems to all be compounding. And I have a feeling I see what's going on. I see what is cooking, as well as I see what's going to come out. Because remember the tweet that we just did a video on a couple days ago? It was a couple of days ago, literally, where Sam Seder says that, he's working on compiling evidence against Stephen Clam Chowder, that he's nervous about doing a debate with Sam Seder, right? So this all kind of plays into that, and it's sort of a growing, sort of amassing, sort of thing that's going on here. And so we're going to be looking at this. So if you don't know the backstory of this, Gavin McInnes has some new show called Freespeechtv, and he was offering massive lump sums of money to lefties to go on his show. He offered Sam, I believe, like $5,000. I think David also $5,000. He offered Ana Kasparian $11,000 to show up, which is really weird. It's like, anytime you hear something like that, obviously your sort of BS meter is going off immediately. Like, holy smokes, wait, what? Because most people appear on shows for free. They don't charge anything. Now, there are the rare occasions. I think some situations, cable might do that in some rare situations, but a lot of times cable's also just using them for free. But, that's pretty rare. And so you're kind of, your red sirens are starting to kind of go off there. And, there was a whole fiasco of, there's a chance that Gavin McInnes called in as a guy named Jim on David Pakman's show. It was really memey, and he said a bunch of nonsense. He was like, it was really obvious too. Now, I don't know for sure it was him, but it was definitely someone who's memeing, because he was like, oh, I quickly unsubscribed after watching the videos with Mark Lamont Hill and Cornel West, and just a bunch of random stuff like that. But let's check this clip out from Mr. Gavin McInnes. What does he say about this? Let's go ahead and see.
Just pause. Sam said yes. The conservative he wanted didn't want to waste time with him. David Pakman said yes. And as far as I know,
Very interesting. Let's rewind that really quick.
Hurt them financially.
Just pause.
Look, he's also copying Sam Seder's posit, so yeah, Sam should probably be on the lookout. His posit is being stolen right now. And by the way, his setup is a bit interesting. I don't think I've seen a setup like that before.
Sam said yes. The conservative he wanted didn't want to waste time with him.
Interesting. He says the conservative he wanted didn't want to waste time with him. Now, there were two people, okay, because in the video we're going to be looking at right now, Sam Seder, when speaking about this whole issue, he's basically saying, he's blanking out the name because he says that there's like some sort of a little, I don't know, I think he called it like a project. I think I might have heard him call it, I thought I heard him say documentary, although he said project for sure. And so people are wondering, is it Dave Rubin or is it Stephen Clam Chowder? Now, most people thought it's Dave Rubin, but I'm going to tell you, I really highly, highly doubt it's Dave Rubin. I think it's Stephen Clam Chowder. I think that the person that Gavin McInnes is referring to here is indeed Stephen Clam Chowder. Dave Rubin already isn't someone who, Gavin would necessarily, say is a conservative guest. But, let's kind of check this out. So this is from Sam's coverage of this whole situation. And let's hear what he says.
Now, this is part of the second project, so we're going to skip this. I was contemplating if they could deliver this person that I would do the show. I would not take any money for it because...
So what he says there is, we're going to skip this because it's part of a second project that's going on, right? That's what he says there. And what's interesting is obviously he blanks out the name. He doesn't state the name of the person who's this potential guest. And so, of course, this left everyone wondering as to who it was. And if you look at the comments section, actually it turns out the vast majority of sort of the consensus is that they're talking about, Rave Dubin here. But I don't think it's Rave Dubin, and I'll explain to you why. as I kind of looked at all of this different evidence here. I think it's actually Stephen Clam Chowder. So here we can check out something interesting. So this was from Destiny has like a little podcast that he does on his live stream on Twitch called Startups. They talk about like I guess business startups and just the story behind it. People come on and tell their stories. And so he had Sam Seder on, and he said something really interesting. Let's hear him out.
Good. Look, I know that I'm helping some people sell books.
Sure. I mean, you're supposedly you're really big online, but I haven't seen Steven Crowder respond to your debate challenge at all yet, so I'm not entirely sure.
I also have, we're going to do a special report on that soon, actually. Yeah. There's more to that story, and I have the receipts.
Okay. Interesting. So what does he say there? He says he's working on a project coming up, and he has the receipts, right? So, obviously we see what he's talking about there, right? When he's talking about the project, and this is literally the simplest thing to string together. He's talking about the second project here, and he's talking about how it's about Stephen Clam Chowder. So if right there he's referencing a project that's coming up, and he says here that that project is about Clam Chowder, and in the Gavin McInnes video, he says, we're going to skip naming this person because it's part of a second project. What does that tell you? It means that the person who he's talking about for that second project is Stephen Clam Chowder himself. So it's not Dave Rubin. A lot of people thought it was Dave Rubin. It's actually Stephen Clam Chowder. So what this means is two things. Actually three things. There's a couple things here because we're going to listen to Sam's explanation of this, the way it went down, and it's very interesting to say the least. But what we know now is Gavin McInnes, revealing to us that Stephen Clam Chowder declined the debate because he, quote, didn't want to waste time with him. We know that Sam is talking about Stephen Crowder, not Dave Rubin. We also know that the tweet, which we'll bring up in a second, that he was referencing, most likely has to do with this situation. Because to be fair, or to be honest, I don't know what sort of evidence they could have picked up from the Politicon situation. It was so long ago, and it just seems random that they would be able to pull up any receipts for that. This, it makes sense that there's receipts for. Now, we can actually hear out Sam and the way that it went down, because this is also important to this portion of the story. So let's hear them out.
I believe Gavin just reached out to Blank yesterday for dates.
So again, Blank is the person that's the subject of this project that they're putting out. And obviously it's Clam Chowder. So here, let's hear him out.
Yep. And Blank is on board for the show.
And Patrick's amazed now. Because
Thank you, Patrick. And be in touch soon. And they say, and then Jim writes back, what nights work in June for Sam? And Patrick wrote back, hi, Jim. Sam says, whatever night Blank is there works for him. Jim says, awesome. Thank you, and back to you soon with dates. And then a couple of weeks go by. And Patrick writes back to Jim, Sam just asked what's up. Do we have a date yet? Jim said, thank you for following up. I'm sorry it's taking so long. I'm working hard on it, and we're in dialogue with it over with Blank. I'll know more in coming days. And then a couple of weeks go by, and Patrick writes to Jim again. Hey, Jim, any word? Jim says, yeah, made some progress over the weekend. Hope to have an answer for you soon. I want this just as much as you and Sam want it. And then Jim wrote back a week later. We tried hard, man. But he just won't do it with Sam.
So, more evidence that he's talking about Stephen Clam Chowder. More evidence that Gavin McInnes, the conservative guest that he's referencing, that, quote, didn't want to waste his time with Sam, is indeed Clam Chowder. Also is more evidence that the sort of drop that Sam Seder is going to do, the revealing of receipts, is going to be about Clam Chowder. And so that, that really right there is what it tells you. And so most people thought he was talking about Dave Rubin. He's not talking about Dave Rubin, because Dave Rubin wouldn't accept a debate with him in the first place. And, as they said there, basically, they said, that X person was down but then pulled out. That sounds like a Steven Crowder thing, not a Dave Rubin thing, because, Rafe Dubin is not going to accept this in the first place. So clearly he's speaking about Stephen Clam Chowder and not Dave Rubin here. And also, if you guys recall this, this tweet from Sam himself, he sent this out a couple days ago, or actually a week ago. This tweet reads, "For Crowder's eyes only." Stephen, do you really want to have a discussion over this? Because as you probably gathered, I have some audio and documentary evidence you're nervous about it. So, from this tweet, what we can surmise from this tweet is that basically he's gathered this information on Stephen Clam Chowder not from the Politicon thing, right? Because there's two people dodging Sam Seder now. It's a combo. It's Rafe Dubin and Clam Chowder, right? The Clam Chowder story is basically he was supposed to debate Sam Seder at Politicon, but backed out because he's a wussy. And I think literally his dad told him, "You're not going to do this because it's going to be bad for your brand." Because his dad is his manager, apparently. So, he's got two people, so we have to kind of guess all the time. But from what it looks like for me, and I did, as I just showed you, did a bit of an investigative work here. I think that the person he's going to be dropping these receipts on are, it's Stephen Clam Chowder. And where is that coming from? I don't think it's coming from Politicon, because I don't think they have anything from Politicon. If they had anything from Politicon, they would have released it. Now, I'm not 100% sure that they don't have anything from Politicon. I don't know, maybe it's some sort of a mix, but to me what it seems like is the timing of his comments on Destiny Startups podcast, the comments on his show, etc., right? All tell me, based on the timing, that this documentary and audio evidence is coming from the whole Gavin McInnes situation. So, basically what it means is, we know that, Gavin McInnes is referencing Stephen Clam Chowder when he says that, there's the conservative that Sam wanted to debate didn't want to waste his time with them. B, we most likely know that this evidence drop that Sam hopefully does sometime soon, is probably going to be based on the information from the, this whole Gavin McInnes saga. That's what I see happening. And C, we also know that Stephen Clam Chowder is a massive coward. And again, I want to sort of take you back to the whole situation between Kyle Kulinski and Steven Crowder a couple years ago, back around 2016-ish time, okay? Stephen Clam Chowder challenges Kyle Kulinski to debate. He decides not to do it. And, Stephen Clam Chowder called him a coward and all that kind of stuff and said he was scared, and right-wingers were saying that, he just likes his echo chamber, yada, yada, yada. And so I think it is time to ask the question, even though we've already been asking the question, obviously, is that, why won't Stephen Clam Chowder have a debate with Sam Seder? I think that's the time that's the question we need to ask. And obviously the answer has to be that he's afraid. Okay, the answer has to be that he's afraid of debating because it'll do some sort of, harm to his image or whatever it may be. Remember, he also got pretty badly kind of like, I don't know what phrase you want to use, but he got beaten pretty bad by, Yusuf, Fortunately, his ideology isn't all that great, but, he did certainly handily lose that debate. But anyways, so conclusions are Gavin McInnes accidentally reveals that Stephen Clam Chowder is the one who declined to debate and also said that, quote, he didn't want to waste his time with him. We also know that Sam's going to be doing a drop on evidence that is based on the whole Gavin McInnes saga. And C, we know that Stephen Clam Chowder is a coward. That's all you need to know.